Yeah, the news this week has been telling.
Yeah, I mean, like here at the podcast, we try to. We're not all about the. There's not a whole lot of feel good stuff that we can talk. That's because let's be honest. I mean,
I wish there was.
There's a feel good is great and all. It's not as interesting sometimes. You know, just kind of. I think the outrageous nature of the state of the world is something a little bit more attractive to talk about when it comes to conversational pieces and stuff like that, but the president just went to Ukraine a little bit ago, a couple days ago, I think. Made a horrendous speech over there and stumbled and bumbled through his words, but basically what we got out of it was that we're definitely gonna be in Ukraine for a hot minute.
Yeah.
Like that's not gonna go away.
So $500 million worth of military assets to Ukraine, and he vowed to take care of Ukrainians' pensions so they can have something in their pocket.
So we're doing Biden bucks over there too.
All while East Palestine, Ohio is chemically contaminated, and he won't even visit the area.
Because he don't want to get that chemical on him. You know, it's this stuff is just it's disheartening to see how how our government is operating and the things they prioritize over our own people. You know,
Yeah.
we got crises going on of our own. We have parts of America that have autonomous zones.
Where are they at now? I haven't been keeping up with the autonomous zone stuff.
There's some in Georgia. There's some in Seattle. It's disheartening because we got problems in the U.S. I mean, we got infrastructure issues. We got freaking humanitarian issues at the border. We got border security problems. We got financial issues.
Financial crisis going on.
We got
housing market is doing weird stuff still.
We got some we got shortages all over the place when it comes to
price of basic goods gets. I mean, eggs most recently jumping up to what was it, like $6 a dozen, $7 a dozen, where it's usually like $3 or $4 a dozen. I mean, come on, the basic food source, and it goes up that high with no explanation.
Yeah, I mean, we got areas in the United States that have decided to just go ahead and figure it out on their own, and as opposed to do anything. Here on Forbes, there's a telling headline. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Forbes and their coverage, but it's like I said, like I look at all publications, not just right-leaning or stuff that I like to listen to, but I'll listen to the left-leaning media outlets and stuff like that, because there is some truth in some of the stuff that they're reporting, and some of it can be almost like a telegraph move into what's about to come, you know, for different issues. You know, here the autonomous zone in Seattle, apparently it's a harbinger of America's future if politicians don't start working together. I explained to a friend that was just absolutely confused by the state of our affairs and how we do things. And the best way I could explain it was I got a pear tree in my backyard. It gives pears about every 2 years, It comes in and it is flush with pears.
Hmm.
Imagine if I just say, I don't want to eat any of my pears. I'll just hold on to those. But I still need pears. Let's just say pears is, for example's worth, is something that's needed for my house, and my house being
Right.
a country. Like, picture
Right.
my house as an independent nation. I need pears to run my household. Imagine that I just don't want to eat any of those. I save them, and imagine that pears don't perish. Then, but I know my neighbor across the street has pears for sale. Strike the deal with him to buy pears. All the while, I'm saving a stockpile of pears. Well, while I'm buying that, then a new person comes into my household and says, say my wife takes over the affairs and goes like, "Now, why are you buying pears when you got your own?" I said, "Well, I don't make enough." "Well, let's make more." So now we plant 2 trees, make it 4 trees now total. We make enough to save, and now we have enough pears to go around and use for us. So now the cost of pears significantly dropped because the people in my household don't have to spend as much because they're locally produced. It don't take as long to take them anywhere, So now we're self-sufficient with pears. And then at some point I'll take over and tell my wife, "To hell with that. Let's cut these pears off. Let's cut these 3 trees and keep the one." And she's like, "Well, that don't make any sense." I was like, "Well, you're not in charge right now." So I cut the 3 trees and I start using the pears that I've saved up. But I don't plan for the future. So then I'm like, shit, I'm low. I'm going to have to buy pears again. So then I go across the street. It's like, "Hey, man, let me get some pears. Remember last time?" "Yeah." "Cool. It's going to be twice as much now because you can't keep an agreement. And we're not producing as much because we don't have to sell to you anymore. So now the price of their pears is way higher. So now I'm paying double the price. But I'm getting the pears. So now everybody in my household has to pay more, but we still got it. We're fine." Then this person across the street invades the country, the house next door, where I get my apples. And they go like, "Dude, are you watching this?" We're like, "Yeah, man, that sounds rough." I was like, "Dude, we can't give you the apples that you want if this is going on." And it becomes this childish shell game of assets all over the world where we end up supporting this nation in Ukraine, for instance, and I don't believe we were getting a whole lot of natural resources from them anyways. Any resources. I don't know what resources we were getting from them, period. But now we're assisting them at a significant disadvantage to our personal economy. Now we're not eating as well. We're not saving as much. We're spending twice the amount of money that we were spending just a couple years ago. We could have just minded our own business and grown our own shit, And it's asinine because then let's say we're now committed to help our neighbor, and we're like, okay, we're gonna help them, come rain, snow, sleet, or hail. And then we discover that they're selling pears through a tunnel to some other country. It's like, oh, we got to put a stop to that. So then we destroy the tunnel to hurt their economy so they quit attacking our neighbor. It's dick measuring contest, man. It's childish. It don't make any sense. Like, you look at it and you're like, well, why are we doing some of these things, and who stands to benefit, and who? Because in this scenario, I can clearly tell you that I stand to benefit, or my next door neighbor stands to benefit. There's people you can point at. You go like, okay, well, that person and that country and this, they benefit directly from this. But we just keep printing money. It looks like we just keep printing money. Where the hell is this money coming from that we're giving to Ukraine? We got Americans that don't tonight, right now, there are Americans inside the continental United States. They don't know where tonight's dinner is going to come from. Mm-hmm. They don't know where they're going to sleep. They may have medical problems that are not going to get looked at. But yet, here we are providing all this money to this other country. and nobody sat there and told us clearly, this is why X, Y, and Z, because if we don't, then X, Y, and Z. Nobody's explained the math.
Yeah.
It's just done because they said so. Now,
I think we've discussed before is like where conspiracy theories come from. If you don't explain things to people, you
Yeah.
leave a lot of room for assumption. And people
Yeah.
are going to come up with stuff and start researching stuff and make connections where maybe there aren't any, and
right.
make connections where there might actually be a connection. As far as like resources that we get from Ukraine, I just looked it up. We get, I think, counts for like $1.4 billion that U.S. imports from, which is nothing.
Yeah, it's a
on the
drop in
grand
the
scale.
It's a
Yeah.
drop in the ocean.
And what we get is metal, iron mostly. Yeah, it's not even a trade partner.
It's not. Yeah, that's not. That's the thing. Like, is it? So for a long time, in recent history, mind you, not. This is not variation, but ever since I believe, and you can call me on my bullshit if it's usually.
I will.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm good. I'm good with it. After the industrialization of the world.
Hold on, I gotta Google ready. Which one bullshit?
Yeah. So a lot of the things that kept countries from killing each other was international trade.
Oh, yeah, still today.
Yeah, like it. How many years was France and England freaking beating the freaking snot out of each other? Spain, England, France, all those countries, Germany, all them countries.
800 years approximately.
Yeah, we're beating the freaking brakes out of each other for
800
fucking
years.
hundreds of years.
Since about the fall of the
And-
Roman Empire till about 1700, yeah, or about 1800.
Until the modernization of these countries, when they started to, they liked what you had.
Mhm.
They're like, whoa, ceasefire. Hey man, nice shirt. Where'd you get that? I was like, oh man, I got a bunch over here. I said, tell you what, man, how about you give me 5 of those shirts every month? And is there anything over here you like? He's like, yeah, man, I like that hat. Yeah, I can give you hats. It was sort of this back and
Yeah,
forth.
basic trade, yeah.
And that basic trade and the mutual benefit of working together as nations kept a lot of those ended a lot of those wars for the most, So my thing is that there's no, but it would also be a catalyst to begin one, because there's something to lose. There's something to gain. There are stakes in place. So the stakes are high because of whatever. I don't see it other than just self-assured mutual destruction with Ukraine. Like,
Well, that's the thing. Like, the United States doesn't benefit
at all.
from Ukraine's existence, really.
Period.
We don't get much trade from them. Like I said, it's like $1.4 billion, which is nothing on the trade scale. Most of it's ferrous metals, iron.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't get anything from Ukraine. I don't even think before the war it was a major tourist destination. So, I mean, not even much of a tourism.
Right.
And there are countries that you can argue like that. Monaco's a big tourist spot, and we don't get
Okay.
shit from Monaco. But because Monaco's a really wealthy, small nation. But I mean, there's really no argument to help Ukraine other than like the Robin Hood argument. Like we're trying to help somebody who's weaker against a very, very strong enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much it, which economically doesn't make sense. I mean, it appeals to the morality of people. Like, yeah, we help weaker people defend themselves against stronger people.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah, economically there's nothing to gain from it. Unless you start making conspiracy theories. Unless you
Yeah,
start
I mean,
getting into
it's
the
a-
weeds of like what could be happening or what you think might be happening instead of what you can see and have actual facts to back up.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, who would benefit from this? Well, we can theorize that the Biden family would benefit from this. His son, Hunter, was in a very high-level position in Burisma, the natural gas and oil company, that he had an $86,000 a month job when he doesn't know dick about the energy industry at all. He's a crackhead that just happens to be the son of a vice president at the time, vice president. Now he's the president of the United States. So I mean, that you can see the Biden family really benefiting from this. As far as anybody else, no idea. You'd have to get into more conspiracy theories, more things that you really don't have facts to back up. You just have coincidences and possible connections between those coincidences. And who knows? Who knows? So right now, the only legitimate reason for the United States to be involved in Ukraine is the Robin Hood theory, just helping a weak person protect themselves against a strong person. A weak nation protect themselves against a strong nation. Ukraine's one of the poorer nations in Europe. I don't know where they are on the scale, but
I mean, it's
I know Moldova's at the bottom. They're the poorest nation in Europe, but I don't know where Ukraine sits on that scale. They already had major governmental corruption issues before 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea. They already had major corruption issues, and after that, I have no idea who President Zelensky.
Yeah, Zelensky.
I don't know. He was an actor. He's a comedian and an actor before he became president.
Well, the thing is that there's
I don't know.
There's a process that should take place before you start sending taxpayer money to a foreign country like that. Before you start utilizing taxpayer money for anything, there should be some kind of process, and there is a process in place.
That's the thing, there is.
But Congress
has the power of the purse.
How do they justify? Now, I'm approaching this from the layman because I don't have the technical knowledge or whatever to be privy to some of this information. But the thing is that how on earth are they able to continuously approve amounts of money in the billions and billions of dollars without the oversight that in the due process that it requires? If they're using these executive orders, but where are these executive orders? Where are they generating from? Where are they coming from? It's. They're about to start the student loan forgiveness plans here in a little bit. I guess student loan payments are restarting here. I think next month or so. Another thing is that we saw an unprecedented amount of tax returns being paid out this tax season.
I got more. I got more than last year.
And but usually they had over 8 million tax returns in the month of February. Some crazy amount.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's an amount incredibly higher than historical. People, what that tells me is that people need that money way quicker.
Mm-hmm. With the inflation, our dollar's worth a hell of a lot less. It can't buy as much. So
this is just they're gonna start paying for doing the loan forgiveness program, and for some people, the thing is that it gets the approval. Some of this stuff gets the approval of some people that are in debt from student loans, mm-hmm. because they're not living they live in the microcosm of themselves.
Right.
So in the big scheme of things, if the government, for instance, the Biden bucks, when we were having the pandemic, the scandemic,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
When the scamdemic was going on,
with a $500 payment, then
but they paid these things to everyone.
Yes.
And people that were working essential jobs were working. We were still getting a paycheck, and we were still working, and we were going out on the road and doing our job. But yet these Biden bucks just kept coming in for a hot minute there. I didn't touch a single dime of that.
Right.
Because I was any minute now the freaking hammer's gonna come down. I'm gonna end up owing this thing. And there was no oversight whatsoever. It was just blanket, just blah. Here you go. This is the money that we're gonna give you for the pandemic. For me, I don't recall a time in history in any of my studies where the U.S. government shelled out money to their people like this, with zero qualification criteria. There's few countries in the world that give their citizens a stipend for being citizens, but that's because they're they have their GDP is making, whatever, like Kuwait, for instance. There was a while there that Kuwaiti citizens were getting a stipend from the Kuwaiti government that was stemming from oil sales and whatnot. But some countries do that, but like, how the hell do we justify all that money, just giving it out to whoever? PPE loans or PPE loans or whatever, going out to anybody that just basically does an LLC, like on the drop of the dime. Granted, the IRS and some of these other agencies are cracking down on that, and they're starting to get some get back on that. So a lot of these people that fraudulently incorporated themselves or did stuff fraudulently just to get those PPE loans or PPP loans, whatever they're called, they're gonna suffer some consequences over them, and that's fine. But because they actively sought out that money, which is therein lies the difference. So they willingly, knowingly committed some kind of fraud. But
so on the money printing thing, have you ever looked at the M1 money?
I have. I just haven't seen it lately.
I'll show you. So,
what's the M1? Explain it for people that don't know. Like, if you
so
don't
the
know
M1 money stock is essentially a inflation chart. It shows the basic information that it shows is how much money has been printed and when. And what it shows on the chart is if you want to look it up on Google, anybody watching and listening wants to look it up on Google, M1 money stock, and that'll show you. And this. I'd like to see when it was image captured. Anyway, so this scale goes from 1980, probably 1970, to 2020, and we could probably find a way to put this picture on the thing so everybody can see it, but so you can see it.
Oh, great Googling move, man.
So the majority of money printed in the United States and the history of the United States has been printed in the last 2 years.
Oh, this is gross. Just put it down.
No, you deserve this.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it goes, okay. So in billions of dollars, so probably $4 trillion is what the scale says in the beginning of 2020. It goes from 4 trillion to 7 trillion in really less than 2 years, probably about a year. So all that money that you're talking about, the Biden bucks that was sent out and everything, that's new printed currency.
Right.
What does printing a bunch of currency do?
It devalues.
It devalues all the currency.
Devalues all of it.
Which increases inflation. That's how it works. The more money you have in the market, the less the money is worth.
Yeah. So it's
That's why the price of everything went up in the last couple of years. Everything. All things. The price of anything went up in just the last couple of years. Because inflation. Because of the Biden bucks. Because of mass printing of money. Because they printed an additional $3 trillion. You know how much they gave to the people, though? Not much. Not much, really. I can look at it. It was something stupid, like, out of the $3 trillion that was printed,
so
a couple $100 million went to the American people. So
here's food for thought. Like, apparently, according to Mr. Google. Now this is quick.
Don't call it Google. Call it the Oracle of Delphi.
The Oracle of Delphi. Yeah. Wow. The Federal Reserve note is backed by debt purchased by the Federal Reserve and thus generates a significance for the Federal Reserve System, which serves as a lending intermediary between the Treasury and the public. So, it used to be gold, right?
A long time ago.
A long time ago.
It used to be backed by gold, yeah.
Right. It's oh my goodness, man. So,
you ever heard of Robert Kiyosaki? He's a military veteran that wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. He's a major real estate mogul. Yeah. He talks about that all the time. He talks about what our money is actually valued on, and money is debt, purely. Like, our money is valued by debt, and that's exactly what you just read.
Right.
And I'm saying, you want more in-depth stuff, go see Robert Kiyosaki. He talks about it in depth. Yeah. Well, neither one of us can explain that as well as he can. So.
I can't. The thing is that, so my understanding, debt at some point has to be paid or forgiven.
That's your understanding.
Right. Debt has to be either paid or forgiven, right? So let's say this is at a personal level, at a me level. If I incur in some kind of debt, I have the choice to pay it or default and suffer the consequences, which could come in many different forms. Depending on what assets were loaned, I could end up in jail, or I could end up being sued, or I could end up losing collateral assets that I have to satisfy that debt.
So the jail thing, not true anymore. There's only one place in the country that has a debtor's jail anymore. You cannot go to jail because you're in debt. Period. Unless you are in debt to the IRS.
Well, it's
I'm
still,
just saying.
yeah, it's still,
So if you take out like $10 million loan from like
Right.
Citibank or something like that,
Yeah.
nobody can put you in jail for that. Nobody.
okay. So
But if you owe the IRS $20,
saying
they can put you in prison.
at the very worst of the consequences, jail.
Okay.
So
Right.
the very worst, not likely, but but I can still suffer the consequences for defaulting on that, for not paying. And it could come in many different ways. Like at the worst, in the bottom of the scale, the crazy scale, would be freaking jail. Some of it will be losing assets, being sued, and having to satisfy the level of debt by losing some of my assets that'll satisfy that debt. Or it
Garnishing
could
wages.
garnishing wages. It could come in many different ways. I could end up, or that debt, in the best of times, could be forgiven. By a couple things. I could file for bankruptcy. I can, and there's still consequences to that, because filing for bankruptcy, it's bad for a lot of people, and depends on the level of bankruptcy that the type of bankruptcy you filed. That'll determine a lot of the how bad it is for your personal finances in the foreseeable future. But if our currency is backed by debt, then at some point, surely somebody will want to collect, right?
Why?
That's because I want the money back, right? Right? This is the layman. Right? So I know.
Right. A layman's understanding would be
Right.
like, yeah, debt needs to be repaid.
Right.
But the reality of it is why? Because so a bank can make loans based on debt. So
Right.
if you, how do I put this?
No, you're right. You got the thread. Yeah.
So a bank gets $10,000 from the Fed, right? The Fed is the source of the money. So a bank gets $10,000 from the Fed. Now the bank already has its own money in its bank, right? So they've got like, say $10 million, and they get $10,000 from the Fed. On that $10,000, multiply it by 10, and that's how much they can loan out.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
No. No, it don't. Because
But they can loan out 10 times what they get.
right. Because for me, the way.
And nowadays, because most exchanges happen electronically, you don't need to print currency anymore.
Exactly. So why are we? It's because for sure, Biden didn't get in a fucking plane with
Right.
$12 billion in a pallet
Money. Yeah.
and flew them over there, right? Surely, maybe it was done like that,
No.
but maybe. Well, I've seen money transfers. I've been in banks in Afghanistan,
Yeah.
and some of these people that know me, they know I've done bank runs for the
I've
government.
had to do cash escorts.
And
too.
I had to do cash escorts overseas and stuff like that. So, but this is to pay off little fish
Right.
that have no
Yeah.
other means. If you're a governmental agency and wants to pay off a warlord somewhere, they're not gonna give you their cash app. So, you send the HESCO in a helicopter with a bunch of cash and pay them off. Now, this stuff for reals has happened. This is how business is done in some of these war zones. But they said, why would you lend out if you know they can't pay? So and that's the thing, like, somebody is getting the benefit of this.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's getting the benefit of it. What that benefit is definitely not money, because they're not paying them back. So the debts aren't being paid for sure. So what is the lender getting in return? You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
like, I'm not just gonna give you my phone and then not have a phone.
Right. Yeah.
I gotta have something in return for what I'm giving you.
You
right?
only loan out your excess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, bro. The economics don't add up until you start thinking about one global economy and one global, because then you're basically borrowing from yourself.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, we might be explaining this completely wrong.
Maybe we may be, but I mean, we may be completely out of our depth in that. But it's.
I mean, I have a basic education in economics. It's not anywhere near.
It's just that, like, to me, it just doesn't.
Level.
No, of course not. Of course not. This is what we're just shooting the bull here, but it's things that don't make sense because I'm using the economic model of my household, for instance,
right, and trying to apply
it to worldwide economics as best as I can, haphazardly. Of course, it doesn't compare, but there are a lot of aspects that do remain the same. That's why we have that's why countries have an economic credit score. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't exist. A credit score wouldn't exist if this wasn't the case. You see what I'm saying? Puerto Rico, my home country, and they fell into junk status. If nobody was expecting a repayment of their debts, then they would have never dropped into junk status. You see what I'm saying? What's the point? They would have just kept lending and lending and lending. So for me, I gotta look at some of those smaller examples and kind of try to tie two and two together to see where this is making any kind of sense, and how the hell is this money just being siphoned out of our coffers and into some other country to fund a conflict overseas that we are all way too fuzzy to understand why it's even happening in the first place. Because not only is communications out of Russia not being put out, so we don't know exactly what the Russians are talking about. We got some exposure through RU, Russian news and stuff like that we can look at. RT news and stuff like that. But the thing is that we have been preconditioned to not pay attention to Russian anything for as long as we've been alive. Right. And the generation before me, my mom and my parents, they experienced it even worse during the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Cold War and all this other stuff. Yeah. So
because the idea behind state-run media, there's no way the media can be unbiased. Exactly. If they're being paid by the state. Exactly. So they can't be critical of the state. Exactly.
So they can't be critical of the state. So you're not getting the real deal McCoy. So they could be a very valid and noble reason for the Russians doing what they're doing, but we'll never know about it because everything that comes out of there, we've been taught to classify it as propaganda. And the thing is that they've been guilty of propaganda. They've been guilty of meddling in people's businesses and misinformation and all this other stuff. So it's they have a track record of deception. Mm-hmm. But in the same respect, so do we.
Right, and it's getting worse today.
So at this point, it just becomes like this real fuzzy situation where we can end up sending our sons and daughters into a horrible conflict and not exactly know why.
Well, not me. I'm not sending my sons and daughters anywhere.
Exactly.
To the deepest parts of a sock.
Yeah. Your crunchy socks. Disgusting, man. Oh, terrible, bro. Terrible. True, but terrible. It's a sad life you live, man. God damn.
I like it.
Your socks don't.
Give a fuck. I have an opinion.
Socks lives matter, bro.
No.
I tell you, it's just it's just crazy stuff, man. It's just
they don't stay crunchy for long.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I mean, I tell you, it's just
well, on the media thing, this is nuts. So yeah, you're right. Russian. Well, look at any state that calls themselves a Democratic People's Republic. So you got North Korea, you got Congo, you got Russia.
Right.
Back in the USSR days, and maybe today too. Probably today too. Looks like it. But look at the American media today and how much they are state-run. You look at different news sources, and I don't care which news source you look at. There's viral videos on YouTube, and they have these different like local
yes,
news
the comparisons.
Right, the comparisons, and they'll overlay them, and they're saying it's a script.
Yeah,
they're all saying the same thing, and I kind of get that because those are affiliate news agencies. So they're the local agencies that are affiliated with ABC or NBC,
so the ABC affiliated,
or Fox
blah, blah,
News.
blah.
So I mean, they're local affiliate programs. So yeah, they do have a script. That's normal news broadcast stuff. So they're broadcasting the stuff from their national affiliate programs and down to the state and local affiliate programs. So I mean that looks really bad, but that's the way they do things. That's the way news organizations do things. Because I mean those local branches can't go out to the federal. They don't have the money to do it. They can't send reporters out to these different areas and stuff and get these reports. But I mean, some of the scripts that they read are not. They have nothing to do with the local thing. They just
the area that they're reporting in.
Yeah.
So they're getting it from somewhere.
Yeah, they're getting it from the national news organization, and it's state run. It looks like it's state run.
Well,
like they're backing a certain political party, which is insane. Why is any news media agency at all backing any political agency? They're supposed to be against them. They're supposed to be outing them. They're supposed to be reporting on them and showing everybody either what they're doing good or what they're doing bad. They're just supposed to be reporting the news, but they're backing certain political parties and political agendas. Mm-hmm. So you got things like CNN. CNN notoriously backs the Democrats. Fox News notoriously backs the Republicans. Why do they have their own media agencies?
Yeah, but
why?
But they all came together like Voltron on election night.
Yeah.
Reporting freaking voter victories here and there, where like. So Fox freaking
before
did some.
The count was even done.
Yeah, before the count was even done, Fox did some shady stuff on election night in their reporting. But I mean, they're clearly designed to keep the separation of the populace. Like you keep civilization divided.
Red and blue.
Infighting between everybody picks a color.
Them and us.
Them and us. They demonize the smaller fringe groups like the LGBTQ people, which have their own freaking drama to deal with, but they're demonized, and now blacks are being chased down the street by cops every day,
and that's the thing.
All this school shootings, so they create all this.
Maybe one side will demonize them, the other side will put them on a pedestal.
The other side will put them on a pedestal. Well, yeah, because it's natural to defend. When it comes to that kind of stuff, you're gonna a lot of people are gonna stand up for the little guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the American way in a lot of senses. They take advantage of our cultural predispositions. And it's all social engineering. They take advantage of our social deep predispositions, which is to stand up for justice and what's right. Give me your tired, give me your weak, and all that nonsense. And then, so when somebody gets marginalized, oppressed, it immediately invokes some kind of action or some kind of reaction off of a certain fringe group that decides to stand up for the rights of those people. And the reality is that some of this oppression is perceived, because when it comes to the Bill of Rights and when it comes to the rights of individual citizens, nobody by law has any more rights than the next.
Right.
Now, the application of those laws may be independent to the people that are applying them, but say, I can't go to a job and be denied that job because of the color of my skin, because that's illegal. Could it happen? Sure. But by law, that's not supposed to happen. Now, it's up to me to report that instance, because the government and the Bill of Rights and my rights and the Constitution is not like this hovering thing that's monitoring everything that happens. So in order for this to actually be rectified, it needs to be reported. So if you're a person of color, you're a person of not color, or whatever. If you're white, whatever, you get discriminated because of race, creed, or gender. You have to say something, otherwise nobody's gonna know, and you're just gonna carry that story on to the next place. And like, oh man, they didn't hire me because I was black, or they didn't hire me because I'm Puerto Rican. I was like, really? Well, who'd you tell? Well, you don't have any, you don't have a leg to stand on, and that place stayed racist, or that place stayed sexist, or that place stayed whatever. But they keep promoting these narratives that further divide the population. When you look at the demographics of these groups that are divided, they're overwhelmingly askew. So it's not that many people in the big scheme of things. Now, I'm not saying that it's right. Everybody should have an equal chance at making a go in life, and just, getting after it. But it's not what the media makes it out to seem. It's not as crazy as it seems.
Oh, yeah.
This conflict in Ukraine may not be as crazy as we look at it. I think that it is, and I think that there's some serious consequences coming our way, and there's some serious things that are on the horizon.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the overall, this overwhelming campaign of division and infighting, you can't, if they keep it up, it's going to be next to impossible to mount the kind of American fervor that existed in the 30s when it came to fighting fascism, where everybody that was able-bodied picked up a hammer, a weapon, or a typewriter and got to work to further the goals of this nation, for the good of the nation, because it needed to happen, because otherwise we wouldn't exist as a nation as we currently know it. But right now there's a lot of conspiracy behind what the media is doing, and of course you guys may have heard me saying it a little bit, maybe quips here and there. Operation Mockingbird. It's of course always alleged, because nobody that I got to see some hard documents, but it's basically an operation the CIA, the early years of the Cold War, attempted to manipulate domestic and American news media organizations for propaganda purposes. According to, an author of Operation Mockingbird, leading American journalists were recruited into a propaganda network and influenced by operations of groups. Operations of front for groups. The CIA supported it, and there's a lot of articles out there and a lot of things out there that back up this notion that the subversive groups within the CIA or the CIA themselves actually recruit these assets to punch out the propaganda that's needed in order to further the goals of the administration. So when you think about why are they supporting one party and not the other? Well, it supports the party that's in charge. So George Bush got a lot of political capital by letting the media in the war on terror, especially. Gave the media unprecedented access and to the war in Iraq. Embedded reporters with every major maneuver element in the desert, from unprecedented access to military briefs, operational briefs, and everything in between. At that point, I believe 100% there was a marriage between media conglomerates and the U.S. government. George Bush put the ring on him, and that was it. It's been timeline-wise, it's been cuckoo for Cocoa Puff since, when it comes to the media and how crazy things can get. We had the luxury of having an embedded reporter that wasn't. He was a writer. He wasn't a media news guy. So he wrote a book and stuff like that. And he was a very cool dude, and he wasn't looking for anything crazy. But there was other reporters that are embedded with maneuver elements, and they were privy to things that happen in combat that are of bad taste to persons that are not trained in that, and it put Marines and it put soldiers in trouble, because all of a sudden it's a war crime. They said he shot the guy. Blah. He wasn't armed and all this other stuff, because they're applying American police rules to combat, and that's not even in the rules of the laws of armed conflict. The manual is very strict, very very specific on what you can do and what you can't. When it comes to maneuvering under fire and actually executing, closing with, and destroying the enemy. But that marriage between the government and media had to. I mean, I've seen it clear as day. George Bush used the media to sell those conflicts, to sell the main one in Iraq, from having all these people testify about yellow cake uranium and all this other stuff, and weapons of mass destruction, which we wandered the desert aimlessly for years, and there was very little recovered, if anything. It's by design to keep us infighting, so other things can happen. So while we're over here bickering about what bathroom people are going to pee in, they're over here sending our taxpayer money to whoever. We have fought wars for less when it comes to taxation without representation.
Yeah.
I don't wish it on anybody, but there's a war coming, whether it be civil or a world conflict. There's a war coming.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think we talked about, like a year or two ago.
There's a war coming.
Like, which one's going to come first, World War III or another American Civil War? Or are they going to come at the same time?
I think a world conflict will satisfy the other.
I think it'll just postpone it.
I think the loss of life is going to be so massive that
maybe if it goes to
that'll just satisfy one, will satisfy the other. It's I don't know. I see a lot of red tape on this. Like there's a lot of red flags on this ramp up, and I don't like it. I don't like where it's headed. Most of the nations involved in this disastrous freaking endeavor are nuclear powered nations. They have, if they do decide to freaking pull the trigger on some of these nuclear devices, I mean, it's just so much. You think Greta Thunberg's gonna be pissed off now? Shoot, wait till she has to put on her freaking mop suit just to freaking go to the damn market. It's it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. I want to put a positive spin on it, because I don't like it just kind of dampens my mood and my day. Just kind of like.
But the thing, you dwell on a lot of these current events, it's just going to depress you quite a bit.
When you look at them in its totality, you're like, shit. Yeah. But the thing is that one thing to keep in mind is that there's nothing you can do about it as an individual human being. There's very little you can do about it outside of committing a huge crime, and everybody will forget you did, because if you go up to any governmental official and then go freaking bananas, guess what? If the police don't kill you, you're gonna end up in jail. It's just not. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do aside from prepare yourself.
It breeds a lot of frustration among American people. I mean, realizing that really, what can you do about it?
What can you do about it?
These government types are going to make their decisions. They're going to throw their weight around, throw money around your money at other countries, and they're going to throw your brothers, sisters, sons, daughters in the military at other countries and other conflicts. And what can you do about it?
But that's the thing. That's the overwhelming psychological effect of the few governing the many. I mean, how is it that one man can launch 1,800 men at another formation of 1,800 men in open warfare, where nobody in those maneuver elements have any beef personally with the other. You see what I'm saying? Like, how is it possible that that little bitty group of people have that much power? You know, psychology and social engineering and all that. That's why you swear oaths.
We can get into the...
You swear oaths and all this other stuff. So it's the same.
The nature of power.
The nature of power. It's the same thing. When you look at the Holocaust, at any point in time, hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of Jews were ferried into rail cars to be taken to their deaths. Eventually. Maybe not some right away, some eventually, some later. But for one thing was for sure is that they were being led to a life of misery. That was evident. They all knew that. They knew as much as that. Not one revolution. 10 guys. Can't shoot all of them.
Well, that's the whole thing about one person with a gun can control 100 without a gun.
Can, and that's the thing. Like we've seen it in some of these medal citations where a single American soldier with speed, violence of action, and a lot of yelling managed to secure the surrender of 40 Germans.
Yeah, but Sergeant York, World War I.
It was like, how? I was like, well, they saw him throw hand grenades at that bunker and bayonet those two guys, and they were like, holy dog shit, that guy's a freaking animal. That's like, but he's out of fucking grenades, bro.
Yeah.
Kill him. It's just one,
That particular weapon only holds 5 rounds.
Right. It's just like, he's got an 8-round freaking, grand, whatever. So, it's fucking 40 of us. Come on, bro.
There was I've been trying to look it up. I don't remember what.
You can girl fight that guy. All of us can girl fight that dude to death.
Saw a quote in a movie. One is a Western movie. This guy had a Derringer pistol. It's only a 2-shot pistol.
Oh God! Yeah.
And there was like 5 guys coming at him, and the leader of the 5 guys made the point. It's like he's only got 2 shots in that pistol. The guy holding the pistol, it's like, okay, which one of you two wants to take a bullet so everybody else can kill me?
And that's
no volunteers. Yeah,
and that's the rationale.
Nobody wants
to get shot for.
Yeah.
For the needs of the many. It's But the thing is that you recruit a force.
Also, part of that is like herd psychology. So
herd psychology, and hive mentality and all that. So you get into that, then that's how you start. When you start researching into that, then you figure out really fast how these people manage to control that many people, and it's crazy. It's crazy. I like to think that there's not a whole lot you can do, but one thing you can do to kind of stay sane and chill out and just, because you can't stop this. This wheel is turning and it's gonna go in one direction or the other. The best thing you can do is prepare your children, prepare yourself, seek training. Every time you go to the grocery store, get yourself a couple more canned goods that you would normally not get. Set them aside. Start stockpiling non-perishables. And I'm not saying go full prepper and start freeze drying stuff and dig into the ground. I mean, if that's a good hobby you want to get into, by all means. Yeah. But
learn how to make your own stuff.
Learn how to make some of your own stuff.
I was thinking about doing something like that. Start researching how to make your own toothpaste, how to make your own soaps.
Yeah, I mean, if you have children, start passing some of this knowledge. Start picking up this knowledge for yourself.
I know by seek training, I know you're not meaning like go out and pay like a couple $1,000 for a pistol course. I mean, you can look up a lot of this training online.
Right.
YouTube. It's not training like for combat. Training for like
you can
how
download.
to survive,
You can download a lot of these. You can download a lot of these manuals online.
Yeah.
While we still have internet, and but you can download a lot of these manuals online. You can make binders if you want. Get you a printer, freaking print them out, make binders, so you can have that knowledge forever. Start creating some kind of self-dependency. I mean, you don't have to start planting your own tomatoes and all this other stuff, but know how to do it, because you may need it a lot sooner than what you think, but unfortunately, but at least that keeps your mind busy. train your children in some of these things. Make it a good family activity. Teach them how to do something interesting. Teach your kids how to build a fire without freaking having a lighter. Teach them those little things here and there, just little survival skills. I mean, it could be a fun activity. Go fishing. Teach them how to go fish. You know, teach them whenever appropriate when to go hunt. You know, and teach them how to hunt the different types of animals. If you don't know this yourself,
how to track animals,
you can go ahead and start looking for this knowledge, and it's out there. Some of it is online. A lot of it comes from just talking to people. Look, guys like me, guys like you, guys like some of our friends that are fond of this stuff, or not. I won't say fond, but are proficient in this kind of stuff. We'll get that knowledge willingly, free of charge. You know, anybody that wants to learn is more than welcome. You know. So a lot of these people are willing, you know, there's plenty of prepper groups on Facebook and some of these other groups, and you can kind of keep it vanilla without going off the rails, you know what I mean, without going full tinfoil, and learn a little bit of something, passive skills that you may actually, if you don't need them ever, great, that's the goal. Yeah. The goal is to never have to implement them, but if it comes up, then at least you're not completely defenseless, you know, so... You know, just kind of pay attention, do your own research, take a look at it. The more you know, the more anticipation you'll have. There is a slight possibility of you sounding like the crazy guy on the block.
Yeah.
So just kind of keep that to yourself, you know, just whatever you're into, you know, if you decide to go down this road or start preparing yourself or whatever, there's no need to go full bore and make people uncomfortable, but just kind of learn it, know it, keep it in the back pocket. If you need it, great. If you don't, then fantastic. But do your research on that, because this thing doesn't look good, doesn't smell right, don't look good. There's not a whole lot of answers out there to wean off of. You know, literally everything that we're getting from that sphere, about 99% of it is from biased media. Mm-hmm. There's very few outlets out there that'll provide you some decent, unbiased, and factual information on what's going on, and you know, it's I guess that's my advice for this whole freaking thing. Just kind of seek knowledge, learn it, know it, impart it to others if asked, you know, and teach your kids, because the situation is likely going to get worse before it gets any better. You know, and know that this is a cycle. It's gonna pass. One way or the other, it's gonna pass.
It's gonna pass like a damn kidney stone.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. But
did we already talk about that? Like how soon we think we're gonna be in? Probably deep shit.
Oh yeah.
I'm giving us till probably June. We're gonna be in a new war.
I said April.
Yeah.
I said April historically. Spring offensive.
That's the thing. Like, we're students of history.
Yeah.
Both of us research and enjoy reading history, and the signs are there. If you know history, you know how these things work. You know what the prelude signs are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably about anywhere between now and June.
Between now and June.
Probably gonna be in a new war, and a fucking big one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and if it doesn't,
not just some border conflict,
and if it doesn't happen by then,
war.
If it doesn't happen by then, you will know for sure by then whether it's going to happen at all.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't happen by then, you'll know for sure if it's going to happen at all. The big scary thing is the nuclear aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is something that we
haven't had. Because if it goes
into
a major war, a full-scale war, yeah, we've never had that on the table before.
Not since the 60s or
right.
Or 50s, I think it was. Yeah.
60s. You're talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Yeah,
it's the
somewhere
60s.
in there. Yeah, that was Kennedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, we haven't had that threat of nuclear Armageddon or whatever,
right?
Or sirens and kids diving under desk tables
since the Cold War.
Since the Cold War.
Yeah.
So, the thing is
if this war goes hot, Putin's already said he is willing to use nukes.
Of course,
To what extent? Who knows? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's detrimental.
Yeah, I mean, whether the state of his nuclear program matches the state of his armored core.
We can't take that risk, though.
Because if he made
nukes are nukes, man.
Because if his nukes are as good as his tanks, then bro, we're good, bro.
I'm not high-fiving that.
He's just going straight and say that thing's gonna blow up in Russia. He ain't launching shit. If them nukes are maintained about as good as his tanks, that motherfucker ain't going nowhere. You gonna hit that button, it's gonna be like, what the fuck? What the? Saba. Yeah. Yeah, he's
Can't take that risk.
can't take that risk, but I'm banking on so much rust on them things, man. This is, open the silo. It's shit.
That would probably be like the best case scenario of best case scenarios. Because,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I mean,
it's hard to think about something like that. A nuclear exchange, an actual nuclear exchange.
right.
I mean, holy shit. You're talking about the end of society. The end of our society, anyway.
Right.
I mean, other societies will go on. And they're not going to hit Africa. They're not going to hit most spots in South America.
Yeah, no, it's fucking Black History Month. Why would you hit this? Come on, you can't hit Africa. Not in February.
Why do you gotta go?
Like,
Why do you gotta go?
you get the rest of the year, bro.
Shut the fuck up. When's Latin American History Month?
I don't fucking know, man.
Y'all have a month, don't you?
Oh, for sure. We got to. Every minority has one, I'm sure. I think they bunched us with the Pacific Islanders or something.
Did they?
I don't know. It was like, you two, over here. You got it. It's like,
Hispanic Heritage Month is... What the fuck is it? It's not even an actual month. It's a 30-day span. September 15th to October 15th.
we made our own month.
Yes.
It's like a pay period. It's like, oh my.
Yeah. Hispanic Heritage Month is
Whatever.
September to October.
Yeah. Beginning of the nuclear winter. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean?
That's the thing. It's getting pretty batshit when, like, there's not even the talk of diplomacy anymore.
No, dude. So
They're not even mentioning it. They're just talking about supporting Ukraine. How about send diplomats to Moscow and see what we can do to end this shit?
it's
Are there no diplomats anymore? Do we not have diplomats? Do we not have a mission in Moscow anymore?
we don't need them apparently.
Is our embassy in Moscow still open?
I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to look. But I don't know, man. This thing doesn't necessarily look like there's a good end in sight. You know what I mean?
And that's what really bothers me. Why is nobody talking about diplomatic measures? They're only talking about supporting Ukraine's war effort. Why would that be?
It beats me, man. Beats me. There's no, and that's the thing.
They're not talking about economic diplomacy. They're not talking about sanctions anymore. They're not talking about any kind of like trade relations stuff. Nothing. They're not talking about anything. They're only talking about supporting Ukraine's war effort.
Like it just doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
Even for proxy war.
Even for a proxy war, don't make any sense, man.
We've had proxy wars plenty of times during the Cold War.
Of course.
And there was always diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Russia.
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason for it. Is what I'm getting at.
Even if it was bullshit, and a lot of times it was just pure bullshit, they still had diplomatic relations between Russia.
Right.
And they still talked about it to the American people. That's not even happening anymore.
No.
Yeah, it's insane. I got nothing for that. I don't have any commentary.
No,
for
it's
that.
just like,
Yeah, apparently the embassy in Russia is still in operation. They're closed right now because it's like, what time is it in Russia?
oh, okay, so yeah, they're closed for business.
Yeah,
but-
they're closed for business right
for
now.
the day, but I'm not.
But yeah, they are still in operation. The mission is still active. So
I'm just not quite understanding. Like it's so confusing to me that I even wonder. It's like, are we the bad guys or are they the bad? You know. Now, granted, I've seen firsthand. Well, not firsthand, but I've seen through reliable communications the brutality of the Russian conflict, the Russian tactics, and how they've employed their warfare. But such is war. War is pretty brutal. No matter, there's no way of flowering it. You know, there's no way of fighting a polite war. You know, if you may. It's even if the veneer of politeness is there,
Right.
there's a level of brutality that has to take place.
Yeah.
But I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. We have nothing to benefit from it. Ukraine brings nothing to the table. Yeah, it's unjust that Russia went in how they did, but why are efforts of ending that conflict, which they were a couple talks in the beginning.
did you
And,
catch Putin's address yesterday?
No,
I sent you a link.
Yeah, you did,
But well, I sent you one. That was one keynote of his entire speech, and it was just him pulling out of the nuclear agreement between the United States. But I mean, they weren't honoring that anyway. They just
right. Nobody
Right.
was. I mean, it's.
So I mean, it's really a moot point that
Nobody
that
was.
Russia's pulling out of that nuclear agreement. It doesn't matter. They weren't. The United States or Russia wasn't really doing anything with it anyway.
Well, the thing is that to pull out of that agreement is two things. It does two things. One, it lets the world know
Yeah.
that this is a thing.
Yeah.
This is a thing that's on the table.
Right.
And I believe that the reasoning for that public withdrawal of that agreement is also to spur the public in the United States to create that discourse.
Maybe.
I don't believe that Vladimir Putin wants to go nuclear, but he will if he has to. And I got that's the thing. Somebody points a gun at your face. You don't need to sit there and try to interpret whether they have the balls to pull the trigger or not.
True.
You know, it's time to go. You know what I mean? You got to do something.
So the other part of Putin's speech was him blaming the West for the invasion of Ukraine.
Well,
And on its face, it sounds really hard to believe. Like, why would you make that claim? What were you about to say?
well, it's partially true because
That's the thing I was about to
because
start
of the agreements they have with
explaining.
NATO. So
So a lot of it being, the agreement that NATO made to the USSR after World War II was NATO will not expand towards USSR territory.
USSR.
But USSR territory back then included Ukraine, Moldova, Romania,
yeah,
all these
Those
countries
Eastern
up
Bloc,
to
yeah.
all the Eastern Bloc nations, up to East Germany.
right.
Right, Germany was split in half. So I mean, NATO said it would not expand towards Russian territory, but then the USSR fell, and then NATO picking up countries, and started expanding towards. And that's his argument. That's Putin's argument, is that ever since World War II, NATO has been expanding eastward towards our borders, and we're defending ourselves by moving in and taking territory west of Russian borders, so that we can make a buffer zone between NATO and Russia, because they don't feel safe. At that point, it's understandable, but I mean, yeah, it's unjust that they went into Ukraine. But that's his explanation, that the West actually started this, and now Russia's defending
Well,
itself.
they've been the U.S. Diplomats and some politicians have been quoted in public saying that they've been trying to pull Ukraine towards NATO for a while now.
Yeah, they've been in talks for a couple of
they've
years.
been in
I think
talks.
since
They've
Zelensky took
been-
office.
they've been trying to, because they both countries have been in talks with the Ukraine to pull each to their side diplomatically, and NATO has been actively trying to woo
Right.
the Ukraine to falling on towards NATO side, and likewise Russia's been doing the same thing because they have Russian ethnic Russians basically that live in Ukraine. Mainly, a lot of them are concentrated in the Donbass region, and a lot of them are in the Crimea.
Yeah.
So
And that was the reason. for
some
being
of some of those sectors in Crimea and the Donbass were already trying to seek independence from Ukraine and be annexed by Russia. Anyways, it was just like the Russian-speaking civilization, civilians that live there. That's what they were trying to do anyway. So, but
then you cross into the territory of a national sovereignty. So
national sovereignty.
you got people that want to
But-
break away from the nation. So it's the same argument with like the United States wanting to do different states in the United States wanting to do secession. Right. So now you got people in the Donbass region wanting to secede from the Ukraine and join Russia and be part of Russia. And now you create a new border between Russia and Ukraine, and it excludes the Donbass region. So I mean, does Russia have the authority to just go in and say, hey, this is what these people want. We're taking this territory just because of what these people want, and violating Ukrainian sovereign territory because those are where the borders are. That's still Ukraine.
Right.
So I mean, now who's in the right? Is Ukraine
Correct.
in the right by defending its borders because you're a foreign nation coming in trying to annex half my country?
Correct.
Because there are ethnic Russians living here. So we can just negotiate with them and have representation in the government so that they can feel at home in their own country as well. Rather than Russia coming in and it's like, well, no, now this is part of Russia.
There's a way of skinning that cat, but how the fuck is that any of that our problem? That's where I get that. These people are not members of NATO. We don't have to my knowledge, we don't have any we don't guarantee their sovereignty by any stretch of the imagination. In my opinion, we don't have any treaties that guarantee their sovereignty. We don't get any imports from that country. They don't give us a goddamn thing. They do pay Biden and his fucking family. But that is such a infantile way of going about things. But I don't think this is Biden's doing. And that's one thing that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Like, we have a president that has some diminished mental capacity, just to be polite, because.
Yeah.
But we have a president that's being puppeted around.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing. It's so obvious.
It's not just obvious. So I can go into I can kind of veer off into the conspiracy theories being controlled by blah blah blah. But he has literally said in public,
they're going to be mad.
They're going to be mad at me if I answer these questions, or they told me not to answer. Who is they? They tell the president any fucking thing. Who are they,
Yep.
Joe? Is Joe a fucking hostage? Do we have to liberate this man? Is this man like a prisoner of war or something?
Oh, no, he's totally willing.
You know,
But,
yeah.
he's willing to be controlled.
Yeah,
so.
and that's the thing. Like, so the only thing is that I see, the only fucking living person that I can see has any kind of benefit whatsoever from this freaking disaster is him and his family. But there has to be more, because we're about to plunge the planet into combat. I don't know. It's just so confusing. So confusing.
Hopefully we're dead wrong about all this, and
dude,
we're going to look really stupid for saying
I
it.
try to. Oh yeah, dude. I hope.
I hope it comes down like that.
I
you
hope-
guys are idiots. And
I hope that this
Good.
episode, this podcast,
glad we're
ages
stupid.
badly.
yeah.
The good.
so
I
glad
hope
we're
that this.
stupid.
I hope that this podcast episode ages horribly, and that everything that I have ever said in this podcast, in this particular episode, is proven completely incorrect,
Wrong, false,
but
misinformed.
and all that. That's what I hope. That's what I hope,
Yeah.
because it's
This is insane.
because I mean, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and that's where I'm getting at. It looks bad.
And the thing is, like, we're not just shooting bullets out of our ass on a target, trying to say
Right.
like, oh, war's coming, and we really don't know what the fuck we're talking about. Like I said, we're students of history. We both research history. We enjoy doing it. It's a hobby of ours. and we discuss it quite a bit at length off the camera. So what I'm basing this on, and you can explain what you're basing this on. One, we've already got military buildups on the Ukrainian border, U.S. military personnel. We have sent over 200 tanks to Poland because they bought them. These are Abrams tanks. I don't know what variant. They're M1A1 of some variant, probably the M1A2 of some type. There are multiple different variants, doesn't matter. So we've sent over 200 to Poland because they bought them. We've now sent over 30 to Ukraine because we're supporting their war effort. We've sent over $500 million of American military assets to Ukraine just recently. That's what Biden was saying when he visited Ukraine, I believe on Tuesday. Wednesday, Biden was in Poland doing some kind of tour and support speech because he knows Poland's about to go to war too. As soon as Poland goes to war, NATO goes to war. It's how, especially Poland's tact. So, I mean, we've got these indicators that say we are going to go to war. If the United States engages in war with Russia, that is World War III. That has been the definition of World War III since the end of World War II. If the Soviet Union and the United States go to war, we're at World War III. So, I mean, Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. Russia still has all of their assets. They have all their nuclear weapons that were built under the Iron Curtain. They have all the tanks that were built under the Iron Curtain. They've been using them recently. So, I mean, if we go to war at this point, we're in World War III. China is going to back Russia. They've already pretty much said that.
They already started.
So a diplomat went to China about the same time that Biden went to Poland. And I've heard that Xi Jinping, the president of China, is going to Moscow sometime this week. So those kinds of talks don't happen unless you are establishing support routes, unless you are establishing supply chains, you're making deals. These are big money deals about who's supporting what war and where. These are indicators for big war, and that's what we're basing what we're saying off of. Well, that's what I'm basing. I don't want to speak for you.
No.
That's what I'm basing what I'm saying
and for
off
me,
of. We have troop buildups, we have armor in place, and the thing is, putting the armor there, telling me you're going to train Ukrainians to use the Abrams tank, get the fuck out of here.
This has happened.
There is nobody better in the world to operate Abrams than an American tank crew. And I think those tanks, and this is just what I think those tanks are being placed in Ukraine preemptively so that when Americans come over there, they can just crew them with Americans and send them.
Yeah, so
that's what I think.
So I'm basing my way of thinking most recently on the conflict in Vietnam. The conflict in Vietnam, what we had there that we don't have here is that we owed some sort of allegiance to the French. And we had a big incident in the Gulf of Tonkin that was the justification for more involvement.
Turned out to be
that turned out to be
a
false flag attack. So I'm drawing comparisons between the two, but what we're lacking, which is what throws it off, is the justification for our involvement. That has yet to been revealed to me, because
it's probably going to be the same kind of thing as the Gulf of Tonkin.
So
it's a false flag attack.
So the false flag,
somebody hits Poland.
The thing is that right now, it looks like it won't be a false flag attack that'll launch this whole thing. It'll be a live something that'll be tangible. We'll be able to see and be like, there it is, and off they go. But this has happened before in the same playbook by the same political party in Vietnam. Right now it's 1950 something in Vietnam. Like
I say 1963.
Like, well,
more than likely we
late
have
1950s
advisors in Ukraine already.
Late 1950s, early 60s is in Vietnam is where we're at in the timeline.
I think more than likely we already had advisors in Ukraine.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've had them. I mean, we got the 101st just across the border somewhere else. So
that's the troop buildup.
So we have the troop buildup. I mean, we have units that had reflagged somewhere else. So we have divisions that have reflagged.
We already have American tankers in Poland.
We have American tank crews. We have American aircraft. We have American infantry. We have a lot of assets allocated to that area of the world. And now it's just a spark.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
That's needed.
That's the only thing that's needed. So we're already in position for everything. The only thing that's needed is that spark to gain the popular backing into this, because it has to be a popular war. It can't be. We can't have half the population freaking struggling to go down this hill.
Right.
We need the American public to actually be for it in order to build momentum. Happy boys in the field with good support stateside makes for good combat units doing good work because they have the support of their people.
Right.
You start backing up and calling these people baby killers and all this other stuff. You start demoralizing the force, and next thing you know, you end up with a implementing a draft where nobody is willing to fight. But they have to fight anyways.
Yeah.
And but I think we're the playbook is the same. Like the strategy's pretty much identical. We've seen it at that scale in Vietnam, in a smaller scale in Iraq, with the spark being the weapons of mass destruction and the possible links between Saddam Hussein, Al Qaeda, and all this other stuff. It ended up being a bunch of bullshit, and that was exposed. And then he's got weapons of mass destruction, and yada yada yada, and this and that and the third. Which then became our ultimatum to a sovereign nation to its president to leave.
Yeah.
We did a lot now. Although the way we went about going in there, I don't agree with, because the pretext was incorrect. The reasons for war were incorrect, but the actions that happened while on the ground were different. Those people needed a break that none of us knew they needed. The Iraqi population, I don't think the world would, because it's a dictatorship, they were kind of closed out to the rest of the world. But the atrocities that were being perpetrated by the Iraqi government to its people were far and plenty. And I don't think any of us were really privy to that as regular Americans or even fighting Americans. We weren't really privy to that.
We didn't know about a bunch of the things that Uday and Hussein were doing to the people until we already killed them both.
Yeah, until they were dead. And then the people that lived there were coming up to us telling us like, yo, bro, you won't believe what them fuckers were doing, man. Thanks. And shit like that. So it's one of those things. Then we overstayed our welcome and blah, blah, blah. But it is what it is. The prosecution of that conflict could have gone better many different ways, but that's neither here. That's a topic for another time. But right. the playbook to get into the conflict was pretty much the same. Yeah. What's crazy is that my father told me before my reenlistment was up. He was an avid reader. Avid historian when it came to personal historian, like he liked things about history and all this other stuff, and he read a lot and researched a lot and did a lot of his own independent stuff. And when my reenlistment was coming up in 2098, my reenlistment was coming up in 2000, and I told him I'm going to reenlist and yada yada yada. He's like, don't do it. I'm like, well, what do you mean don't do it? He said, don't do it. There's a war coming. There's a war coming. I was like, a war? I'm in the military.
Right.
I was like, there's a war coming. I was like, war? Where? It's like, in the desert, and it's gonna suck. And I'm like, man, get out of here. How the hell do you know that? I was like, wow. And he started, he was like, I read this, and he started putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And I'm like, well, that looks crazy. I was like, it is crazy, and it's gonna be crazy, and you're gonna be right in the middle of it. So, so I ended up reenlisting anyways, and September 11th.
Yeah.
Then bam, one thing after the next, bam, 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 bam. Yeah. I was like, hey, I'm going. He's like, I fucking told you. Yeah. So it's now I'm sitting in the same spot that my dad was. And I'm like, I'm looking at all the stuff and all the things that I've been reading and all the things that I've been looking at, and yeah, it does not look good. But I mean, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. This could all end up being one protracted or prolonged diplomatic freaking snafu that just keeps dragging along and dragging along and dragging along because some other reason.
Right.
And the build-ups here, the build-ups there, it's all that somebody needs to make money, and it never leads into anything. That's all we can hope for, is that this episode ages badly.
Yeah. I was about to say too.
Yeah.
We've already said it, but yeah, hopefully we're dead wrong, and this is used to make us both look really stupid.
Yeah. But I think that's about all we got for this week, right? So
we talked about quite a bit. So.
Yeah. So that's about all we got for this week. So
actually, most of this entire episode has been about probably a coming war.
Yeah. Like, subscribe to us.
And if you're getting issues, getting notified when we post, hit the notification bell. See if that works. I don't know if it will.
Yeah, hit the notification bell. That should fix some of the problems a lot of our viewers are not getting.
Yeah, if you like the content, share the content with people that you think might like it. I'm James.
And I'm Hesco. So, see you guys next week.